Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss Rebels, continue to dominate the transfer portal, landing another commitment from former Virginia Tech tight end Daequan Wright. For the Ole Miss fans that have been listening for the last couple of weeks, Daequan Wright was a name that we talked about as being a potential target and a name that I think is really a sleeping giant in the transfer portal. Like a few things about this commitment. One, massive fan of Daequan Wright as a player and what he can do, but more importantly, how he fits into this Ole Miss offense heading into 2024. Really excited to talk about this one again. The Ole Miss fans that have been listening the last couple of weeks are familiar with Daequan Wright, want to dig in to how he fits into this Ole Miss offense, what he's bringing from a skill set as well. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. This has been just a blast last couple of weeks talking this Ole Miss program and what they've done in the transfer portal. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. You guys know I love talking roster construction, recruiting, transfer portal. The amount of support you guys have shown means a lot. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Daequan Wright. And the first thing I want to talk about is one, was really productive at Virginia Tech, and that was an offense that just really didn't have a consistent passing attack. But his first two seasons at Virginia Tech, 47 catches, over 500 yards. In 2023, had 28 catches for 366 yards. This is a tight end that can be a weapon in the passing attack. And you look at his snap count and what he's going to do for Ole Miss. I mean, I think this is a guy that is more of that jumbo slot. I mean, you'll see him line up in line, can be a run blocker. I think that's more what Caden Prescorn is going to do in this offense. Daequan Wright, I kind of see as being that matchup nightmare where you're trying to get him on linebackers. He's going to run right by them. Nickelbacks and safeties are just not going to be able to deal with the size that Daequan Wright brings to the table at 6'4", almost 250 pounds. And the reason I say that, and the reason I keep using the word matchup nightmare, excuse me, for Daequan Wright, is this is a guy that you see the size, right? 6'4", 250 pounds, coming out of high school, ran an 11-second 100-meter dash. I mean, this is a guy that has some massive vertical speed, really good movement skills. So that's kind of what you get. And Lane Kiffin, if there's anybody that is really good at scheming up for his players and getting them in positions to be successful, it's Lane Kiffin. And a guy like Daequan Wright, you can use kind of all over the football field. And again, getting on him on those matchups that are going to be favorable for him, right? If you want to put a nickel back on a guy like Daequan Wright, I mean, Daequan Wright's 6'4", 250 pounds. You want to try to put a linebacker on him, a little bit more physicality. He's a guy that has an 11-second 100-meter dash time in his back pocket, probably running by most linebackers as well. I think he's the definition of a matchup nightmare and really think he could explode onto the scene in this Ole Miss offense that is predicated in a little bit more space. And a guy like Daequan Wright, 366 yards receiving in 2023, over 200 of those came after the catch. I mean, this is a guy that forced 11 missed tackles on only 28 catches, somebody that's extremely hard to bring down, but extremely fast as well to operate in open space. So you take all the combinations of the skill sets we just talked about, you're looking at a tight end that has a ton of potential in an offense that is going to give him more opportunity. Because again, at Virginia Tech, it was just a limited passing attack. And I think at Ole Miss, like Daequan Wright's skill set is going to be utilized a little bit more. Now, Daequan Wright, as a player, many of you guys know I'm extremely excited about. But the fit in this Ole Miss offense is probably what excites me more. You look at Daequan Wright and where he did most of his damage. I mean, 15 of his 28 catches came between the numbers, a guy that can work the middle of the field extremely well. And why I want to talk about that is you have an offense that is constructed with elite playmakers on the perimeter, right? A guy like Trey Harris, Juice Wells, Deion Smith, I'd even throw in true freshman Aiden Williams. When you have those kind of wide receivers in this offense, I mean, safeties are going to have to respect that. They're going to have to play the boundary. And if you don't want to play the boundary and put a safety over Trey Harris, then let Trey Harris do some damage on the boundary because he's going to win his one-on-one matchup. Same goes for Juice Wells. Same could potentially go for guys like Aiden Williams and a guy like Deion Smith. Now, what excites me most about Daequan Wright is you're going to see most defenses play two high safeties relatively deep, and that's going to open up the middle of the field for a lot of playmaking. And you already had a guy like Caden Prescorn who can do some damage in the middle. Daequan Wright's a guy that really thrives in those short intermediate route trees, taking the football in space, making stuff happen after the catch over the middle of the field. And that is why I think he's a perfect fit in this Ole Miss offense. So you start looking at all these playmakers that are going to be in this Ole Miss offense combined with a phenomenal quarterback in Jackson Dart and a phenomenal play caller like Lane Kiffin. This defense, that the defenses, I should say, that are going to be playing Ole Miss are going to be in a ton of conflict all day. And I think Daequan Wright perfectly fits what Ole Miss wants to do in terms of working that middle of the field and getting their guys in space. And I think also, like, another thing I'd like to add is I think he's a perfect balance to Caden Prescorn. I mean, Caden Prescorn, phenomenal tight end. I will not say a bad thing about Caden Prescorn. Huge that he's coming back. More of that inline traditional tight end that's going to be a force in the run game, blocking, kicking guys out, but also can get it done as a receiver. I think Daequan Wright, although not as good of a run blocker, has a little bit more juice as a pass catcher than Caden Prescorn. So you talk about balancing out your personnel. I mean, Caden Prescorn and Daequan Wright, two tight ends that I think really balance each other out in a massive way. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with a guy like Daequan Wright that you would like to see get cleaned up on 28 catches, did have 6 drops. So the drop percentage was 17.6% in 2023. He's a young tight end, I think, still developing. That's another thing to mention. I mean, this is a guy that's only going into his 3rd season. That's normally when you see the jump. A lot of transfers that you see coming in, you kind of know what you're getting. I think Daequan Wright has a lot of for improvement in his game. If he cleans up the drop problems, I mean, this is going to be a guy that I think can really excel in this offense. And when you look at this Ole Miss team, and Ole Miss fans that have been listening for a while have heard my thoughts. I mean, this is a team that's addressing what they need to address to make a serious run in 2024. I'm fired up about this one. Sunday morning was not going to miss talking about my guy Daequan Wright heading to Ole Miss, a name that probably won't be talked about in the national media, a name that I think we might be talking about this fall. Really excited about this fit. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.